A Giants podcast for Giants fans
by Giants fans.
It's Shaun Morash.
On the sideline, into the end zone. Touchdown, Giants!
From the offseason to the wins and the losses, it's time to take one Giant step.
Welcome inside One Giant Step, a free agency edition of One Giant Step. I'm Shaun Morash. He's Bryce Gelman. We are taping this on Tuesday, March 11th, approximately 10 o'clock in the morning. That time and date is important because depending on when you listen to this, we could hit end on this record now, and in 3 minutes, the Giants have a veteran quarterback. That is how up and down the NFL free agency is. And Bryce, let's just start right now. I don't want to spend too much time on it within this podcast because it can become old news quick. I am borderline stunned that by Tuesday morning, the Giants don't have a veteran quarterback signed yet.
Yeah.
Before we get into the good and the bad that was actually free agency, I kind of assumed that once Sam Darnold came off the board, we saw the Geno Smith trade last year. I thought all these things would happen very quickly because that's what typically happens in the NFL. And yes, Aaron Rodgers can't technically become a free agent until Wednesday, but he's allowed to negotiate and agree upon deals. Yeah. Russell Wilson, the same kind of deal. It seems like the Giants are down on those too. But just for starters, Bryce, are you stunned that we sit here at the time we're taping this? We kept waiting and waiting and waiting. No quarterback yet.
Yeah, and I'm stunned that they haven't gotten a quarterback, and I'm also stunned that they don't have much money left. Like, they've spent the majority of the money they have. I expected at least if they weren't going to have a quarterback by this point that they'd have $15 to $20 million set aside. Now, what's the max they can offer an Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson? Not that much.
Let's keep this in mind because we get lost in this every year, and I think as the Eagles are proving, there are ways around it.
Cap is a facade.
Yeah, I mean, look, eventually you have to pay the piper on it. And when Joe Schoen was first hired, he made a point of saying, like, he didn't want to push a lot of money down the line. Okay, but that's 3-4 years ago, and now we're seeing the way teams operate that maybe that philosophy felt right 4 years ago. It is no longer right. Yes, that sound you hear is a dog dropping a bone. That's what's going on in my house. Ranger, stop it. Now, okay, so he spent some money, but look, they have restructures left to do, right? I mean, they could do more with Andrew Thomas. They could do more with Dexter Lawrence. They could get rid of Graham Gano once and for all, freeing up money. There's other things the Giants can do, and I'm sure they will do. They are actually in a healthy place. I'm not walking away from the first couple of days of free agency going, oh, my God. Now, one thing the Giants, besides quarterback, have not addressed, we're doing what they haven't addressed before what they do address. They also have not addressed the guard situation with Greg Van Roten being a free agent. And I think a lot of people assume that would be the big splash free agent. We just saw Will Fries go from Indianapolis to Minnesota. Unbelievable deal, $88 million. So that guard market might be a little too rich for the Giants to take care of that. Now, let me just say this. I have been, of all the positions on the New York Giants, Bryce, way more positive about the offensive line last year than others have. And I just need to, again, remind everybody, the offensive line, when Andrew Thomas was healthy, which is a big problem, he's got to stay healthy. They were cooking last year when they had Van Roten and Illuminor at right tackle. And that was not a bad offensive line unit. The offense could function. So could they simply bring back Greg Van Roten for one more year, see what happens in the draft, and figure that out? I don't think that's the worst plan. I'm okay not spending $90 million on a guard. That doesn't mean you can leave the position open and just go, well, guess what? Evan Neal's penciled in as our starter at guard. That can't happen either. But I'm okay going back to like a Van Roten, something like that.
Yeah, before you just said that, I was going to say I have a crazy idea. The crazy idea is trying out Evan Neal at guard and seeing what you have. It's worth nothing. Yeah. Like there's.
But you can't just make that your starter entering camp. That's the thing.
I get that, and I like the fact that they just signed James Hudson the third. I know he's an offensive tackle. They have maneuverability right there. They could move him to guard. They could try. I don't want this because Illuminor did a pretty solid job at right tackle last year, putting him at guard. They have options here. As you said, they could bring back Van Roten. But I think above all else, at this point, it would be complete front office managerial malpractice to not try out Evan Neal at some point at guard, just to see what you have. I understand, not having him penciled in, because he's a huge question mark at that position, but like he serves you so much better as a potential starting guard in this league than a backup tackle who's a complete bust. That's it.
I don't disagree, and we probably will do an entire podcast on Evan Neal when the offseason kind of slows down, and we discuss that and debate that. But look, having him as a depth piece, and if he can end up starting at guard goes down, that's fine. But overall takeaway, and maybe the Giants do end up doing a splash at guard, and we're sitting here, whether it's me while I'm on vacation or before I leave, we're doing another podcast on that. That's possible. But as it stands right now, that's kind of a surprise for me. Now, let's get into what they did do. And first, I'll just address this one. Hudson, the tackle from Cleveland, right? Well, let me go back to the list here.
Yeah, Cleveland.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not a great tackle. Not a great tackle at all, James Hudson, which is why he gets 2 years, $12 million, was one of the lower half tackles. But I guess I'm going to spin the positive on it. We can, as a collective fan base, Giants content creators, scream and yell about how much trouble this team is constantly with not addressing swing tackle and putting a guard in Azudu at left tackle every time there's an injury, and not acknowledge, oh yeah, that's a need in free agency. They have a guy with a ton of starts under his belt in Orlando Hudson at a going rate of 2 years, $12 million. See the guarantees. That's relatively cheap. You hope you never have to go to him at right. Like, you hope you play 17 games with Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle and Andrew Thomas at left tackle. The best case scenario is Orlando Hudson appears on the field as an extra blocker in jumbo packages.
James Hudson. Keep saying Orlando.
I don't know why I'm calling him Orlando Hudson. Orlando Hudson was a baseball player, I think. James Hudson. You know, that I don't know what to tell you. He's not a great player. He's here to be a swing tackle.
He's not a sexy signing. They had other sexy signings.
But you sign guys like this. You sign guys like Roy Robertson Harris, more on him in a second. You sign guys like Chris Board, more on this in a second, when you fail massively at drafting those first couple of drafts. So while you're not giving those guys guarantees, you were essentially signing other teams' semi-successful depth draft picks to a little bit of more premium money because you failed at that. So just want everybody to keep in mind, Joe Schoen is not off the hook because he seemingly has had a good first day and a half of free agency. The reason the Giants are signing guys like Hudson is because he's failed massively at the draft and already having that depth churned out on its own, Bryce.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Hudson, what else is there to say about it besides you can't have Josh Azudu as your swing tackle? Like, that can't be your backup.
Or worrying about midway through the year signing Hubbard, the year before Tyree Phillips. Like, you can't do that midway through the year and act like you have no plan. At least you're going into the year with a plan.
Or Justin Pugh. I mean, they've done it a million times now, whether it be with guard or with tackle. They need depth, and they got depth. As you said, it's not a sexy move. You know, it's not, wow, look at that. Look who they just signed. There were other guys for that. But it was the correct move to make. As you said, they've screwed up 2 drafts. And they weren't able to get anyone who really plays on those 2 drafts besides Kayvon Thibodeau. I mean, let's look at it objectively.
Well, Micah McFadden.
And Micah McFadden, yes.
Cordell Flott. But Cordell Flott's depth now.
Yeah, he's depth. Like that's someone.
I can't say nobody. I can't say nobody's played, but they failed too much at some of the others.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, like 85% of those draft picks aren't playing, solid minutes for the Giants now. But yeah, this isn't one of the sexier deals. And let's get into the other ones, though.
Okay. So I just quickly, let's get to the non-sexy stuff that I briefly mentioned. Chris Board, 2 years, $6 million, special teams captain from the Baltimore Ravens. A guy that plays some linebacker as well. That's linebacker depth. But also, I mean, let's be real. The Giants last year, now that the kick returns in theory are a thing again, and punt returns, they missed way too many tackles on special teams last year. So I know that's frustrating on day one of free agency when you see a little money handed out to a guy that you hear, oh, special teams captain, and a lot of Giants, what do we do? First day of free agency, we're signing a guy like this. If you judge Ravens fans' reactions, they seem a little upset they lost this guy. Feels like a glue guy. Look, those kind of players do add up and do matter, and that is the kind of guy. I'm forgetting what's his face. The Giants had him, then he wasn't a player for them anymore last year. That was a special teams ace under Joe Judge. Cam Brown. This is what this reminds me of. A guy that just goes, hustles down, makes those tackles. Okay, unsexy. Roy Robertson Harris, basically making no money. Odd that they signed him on day one of free agency. However, his D-line coach in college, or maybe his coach in college, was Andre Patterson, Giants D-line coach. So this shows you a little situation here where they would sign him. Hopefully, again, they need a D tackle depth, fourth, fifth kind of guy in the D tackle rotation. So that's all the unsexy stuff. Now let's get to the sexy stuff. I'm bringing sexy back. Where to begin? You know what, Bryce? You and I had a little bit of a disagreement on this. So before we just clean sweep talk about the defense, let's talk about the offense with Darius Slayton.
Yep.
Who everybody was stunned. I got on a Long Island Railroad train leaving work last night, and that's when the deal broke. 3 years, $36 million for Darius Slayton. Of course, all of that is not guarantees. You see earlier in the day, different kinds of wide receivers getting, $10 million 1 year deals like a De'Ami Brown. Josh Palmer got a pretty big deal from Buffalo, similar to this one. So that's what we're talking about. Darius Slayton is not signed to any kind of big-time number one wide receiver deal, $100 million. He is signed like a number two outside wide receiver deal. Some believe based on his 750 yards per year with no quarterback, he actually probably could have got a little more than this on the open market. And yet here he comes back to the Giants. So, Bryce, I'm both positive and negative on this. I'm more understanding of it. I have a lot of takes on Slayton, but first I'll tee you up. Your initial reaction to this.
I'm less frustrated with the Giants not trading him away at the deadline. We discussed it at the time.
True. Good point.
We discussed it at the time. And I was like, if you're not going to bring him back, why not trade him? Yeah, if it's a 5th or 6th round draft pick, why not take it? You can't go through another trade deadline without getting assets for the guys that you don't plan on bringing back. So they brought him back. Good for them. It makes me feel better about that. To pay you could say he's the second wide receiver on this team. The targets don't say that. Whichever quarterback they draft, you don't know if they're going to love Darius Slayton over Wan'Dale Robinson. So paying essentially a wide receiver 2/3, $12 million a year with plenty of other holes to fill, Shaun, makes zero sense to me. I like Darius Slayton. I famously said on this podcast that Darius Slayton was a great wide receiver. I think he's a great wide receiver. Do I think he's worth that much money on a team that has that many holes to fill? No, I do not. But on the other hand, let me just say this. Jalin Hyatt, that experiment, done. Over.
Clearly.
Trade him. He holds no value on your roster. Trade his ass. He's going to go somewhere else, and he's going to become a good deep threat. But on this team right now, there is no space for him. You completely punted on whatever hope and dreams that you have about Jalin Hyatt at this point. So he's done.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to failing at the draft, right? You draft a Jalin Hyatt, hoping at least he emerges as a number 2 wide receiver in an offense. He hasn't done that, and they've given him opportunities. Maybe with a different quarterback, he could, whatever the case may be. Look, here's my deal on Darius Slayton, Bryce. I disagree that he's great. I actually think Darius Slayton, in many ways, as a player, represents so much, or at least the argument about Darius Slayton represents so much about the organization as a whole from a fan base. I believe there's no middle ground on Darius Slayton. I believe there's a portion of the fan base that completely overrates him. And then that other portion of the fan base that doesn't overrate him actually underrates him. And I'm probably I underrate him because I get so frustrated by his drops and everything that happens. But when you really think about it, and you think about all our frustrations at quarterback, the production and yardage and everything is there. He did drop a ton of passes, which is a problem, but that's also why he's not a number 1 wide receiver. And more on this as we continue to talk about the defensive players. But if the mindset and goal of this team is to have a young quarterback on the team, to me, I want that quarterback supported as much as possible. And I don't want to, grab a 3rd round wide receiver, hope he could step in this year and be the number 2 wide receiver on the team. I am shocked. I thought Darius Slayton was going to look for a clean slate out of here. I mean, the amount of times he's been in and out with this regime, good for him. And let's be honest, there is probably a part of this where after everything that happened last offseason with Barkley, with McKinney, and whether they were the right moves or wrong moves, forget even debating that at this much, we've completely turned the page to this offseason. The idea internally in that locker room of Joe Schoen letting go of leaders within the room, people he turns around after everybody in that room thought, Darius Slayton was going bye-bye and says, no, Darius, we'd like to have you back. Here's the money. Yeah. Does that go a long way within the room on top of not creating a hole at the number 2? If they did let Slayton walk, which everybody thought, they were going to spend money, Bryce, at this position. And I think people need to understand that. There were talks about Palmer. They were going to spend money at the number 2 wide receiver position. So it would have been a hole anyway you spent. So with that, that's why I'm okay doing it. And if in the end the room starts to turn and go, okay, all right, Joe Schoen, I understand it from that standpoint. Now, I'm not doing tap dances and going nuts about it, though, either, because there are going to be moments this year where Darius Slayton flat out drops a ball that drives me nuts. Yeah. He's not consistent enough with his hands. So, again, I'm not throwing bouquets at the feet of Joe Schoen, but I do understand the move. I do think the people that are very pro the move are also overrating Slayton a little bit. But it was a position of need nonetheless, even if you let him walk, going back to the fact that they failed on Hyatt.
Yeah, Shaun, every team needs a deep threat. Wandale's not that guy. Neighbors works between the dad. Like he's not that guy.
Well, Neighbors absolutely can be that guy.
He can be, but he's not a deep threat specialist. You know, they need that guy. And Jalin Hyatt was expected to be that guy with this quick 40 time being one of the best accelerators in all of football. And then what is that came to fruition? Like what has come to fruition with that? Nothing. You know, DMPs playing a tiny snap share. Darius Slayton is a guy that a new quarterback could come in and trust. It's just we have no idea what's going to happen with the quarterback position. So we're going to get into this in a little because I've seen it all around Twitter since the Giants signed Jevon Holland, and we're going to get into that. But there appears to be a path, or not a path, but a certain mindset adapted by this Giants front office that they know what they're going to do with quarterback at this point. Like either they're going to trade up, which I think that could be, considered likely at this point.
If you ask me today, I think this team is taking Shedeur Sanders 3rd overall. If you ask me today.
I mean, that would be an unmitigated disaster.
Why? You don't know that. You don't know that. Why? Because some scouts say they don't like Shedeur Sanders. Plenty of scouts say they do.
Because if the Giants go take him at 3, he might not go until 15, 20. So you're going to take a guy at 3 when you can get a guy like Abdul Carter who could be an absolute game changer. You could trade away Kayvon Thibodeau, get some assets from him.
Little spoiler alert. 3 quarterbacks are going in the top 10. You're not getting him at 15, 20 because Jackson Dart's going to end up in the top 10 as well. It wouldn't even shock me if the Raiders took him.
That's terrible. That's terrible.
You could say it's terrible all you want. People thought it was terrible last year with Penix. People thought it was terrible when Bo Nix got selected in the first round.
Those guys were rated higher than these guys.
Depending on who you talk to.
It's a worse quarterback draft I think you could look at.
No, overall, depth-wise. But now we've gone the other way on Sanders, which is nuts. I'm just telling you, by the way, I prefer Cam Ward. I think we've gone – you can't just say, it's going to be an unmitigated disaster. How the hell do you know that? Sanders is arguably the most prepared mentally through the family to be in the NFL that he can be. But you know what? We'll argue that closer to a draft pod. That's not why we're here today. Okay. The defense. Because this is what should start tickling everybody's balls out there, all right? This is what should start tickling everybody's balls. I went to bed last night before Chauncey Golston, 3 years, $19.5 million. Agreed. I love this deal for the Giants.
Yeah.
Love this deal for the Giants for a couple reasons. Positional flexibility. Chauncey Golston can play the edge, 4-3 DN type, get after it a little bit, but also on passing downs, those 3rd downs, maybe a 4th one. That is a guy that slides into the inside and he plays more of that interior defensive line and gives you the pass rush from there. Not stop. You don't throw eggs at the screen right now. But the idea of what Justin Tuck used to be able to do for the Giants, where you play that inside on a NASCAR package kind of deal. Golston has the flexibility to go inside and outside. And at the D tackle position next to Dexter Lawrence, that's extremely important.
Yep.
But also, the Giants can't have Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau taking every damn snap on 1st and 2nd down. So that's where he could play the outside. And for that value, at that price, over 3 years, a guy that can basically be a 3-down player for you, 4-down player for you at 2 different positions, I think is massively underrated for this Giants team to have. Now, have caution. He had 5.5 sacks last year, 2 of which were versus Daniel Jones. Okay, so he had 3.5 sacks last year. Just keep that in mind. That's a knock on our own guy. And he was a Cowboy that Cowboy fans seem to like. They can't keep all their talent. But Bryce, I love this move for where you consider the Giants needed help up front, both at depth at the pass rush and playing that position next to Dexter Lawrence. And he's going to take plenty of those snaps on passing down.
Yeah, he originally played defensive tackle to start his career, specifically under Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn leaves to go to the Commanders. He's moved to edge. Again, as you said, 5.5 sacks, pretty solid depth piece. Shaun, is it over for Azeez Ojulari with the Giants?
Yeah. I mean, look, I'll be real. I'm kind of stunned Azeez Ojulari hadn't signed a deal anywhere by the time we were taping this podcast at all.
He'll be an Eagle by the time this is
He
out.
could be. And my guess is yes, but after Darius Slayton was brought back, if sniffing around the market because of his injury history, Ojulari is not getting a lot of money. Would it shock me if he got a 1-2 year deal to come back cheap?
I would love him
back. It still wouldn't
back.
shock me, although I don't expect it.
I would love him back. I mean, can you imagine the depth the Giants would have?
Right.
After signing Chauncey and then getting Azeez?
Yeah, it would be.
I don't know.
It would be insane. Now let's get to the secondary. Before we go corner, let's go safety. We woke up on Tuesday morning. We're getting to 19 minutes, and I'm almost proud of us that I didn't want to lead with this on the podcast because I could see us have gone 20 minutes and it would have took over the whole podcast, and we wouldn't have got to the other free agency stuff. The Giants signed Dolphins safety Jevon Holland, who's had some injuries the last 2 years, which, hurts him a little bit, but he's the top safety on the market. 3 years, $45 million. I love all these 3-year deals. They must sense in 3 years these TV market deals are going to boom. Look, Javon Holland's a massive upgrade over Jason Pinnock at the safety next to Tyler Nubin. And when you combine that with the fact that you expect Tyler Nubin as the second-round pick last year to take another leap forward, how do you not love the idea that this is the safety tandem for the Giants? The negatives, I mentioned the injury, Bryce. The other negative, which I think is kind of getting nonsense now, everybody's tripping all over themselves to go, well, why didn't you just sign Xavier McKinney last year? And I think there's a couple things before we make that a negative on Javon Holland. Number one, if you killed him for letting McKinney walk and not valuing the position, now the Giants have more cap flexibility and they make this move. Okay, so you're mad that he didn't learn from a mistake? I mean, we can't always get mad at Joe Schoen. So, okay, so you wanted that to be done. Now you're mad instead of letting the position continue to rot. He addressed it. I think that's silly. And number two, look, I'm going to say it until I'm blue in the face. Xavier McKinney, I thought was an excellent player. Xavier McKinney on the Giants was childishly immature. He had the ATV accident. He had the, I'm going to go behind Brian Dable's back and talk smack because I'm a Wink Martindale guy stuff. There was so much cancerous stuff with Xavier McKinney and this head coach and general manager that fans didn't sniff around, but you read quotes here or there, and we've kind of buried it and forgot about it because he had a great year in Green Bay. He's gone now. He's a year removed. The Giants added Tyler Nubin last year and now have added Jevon Holland this year. Bryce, could injuries creep up and this move blows up in the face? Sure. But it wasn't like they gave him $25 million a year to come in and be a safety here either. I think it's a pretty good value deal. I'm in on Jevon Holland. I was stunned. And I know you had talked about this on a podcast I was out about your free agency targets. I'm stunned they got Jevon Holland. This one really fired me up.
Yeah, it was one of my top options and one that I didn't think was realistic considering the fact that they refused to pay Xavier McKinney last year. And here's the thing on that. Some guys, some GMs would go out and make the same mistake twice because they wouldn't want to admit that they were wrong the first time. And then other guys are going to go out there, admit they made a mistake, and then make a decision like that, on the surface level, Shaun, looks terrible. It looks awful that the Giants didn't bring back Xavier McKinney considering what he did last year for the Packers. But as you mentioned, there was a lot of stuff beneath the surface there. I killed Xavier McKinney at the time. I did college radio at the time. And I have this clip that they put out everywhere because I killed him. I think the Giants were 6-1 or 5-1 at the time. And the best record they had in years. They were completely locked in, playing hard under Brian Dable. Xavier McKinney was one of the captains of the defense. He goes and like a teenager or a college kid on spring break goes and gets on an ATV and screws up his wrist. And I killed him at the time. I think it was one of the stupidest things I've ever read and seen from an NFL player, specifically a guy who was a leader on a side of the ball. It was pathetic. And I think maybe that was part of the decision that Joe Schoen made in not bringing him back. Did it backfire? Yes. Was it a big mistake to not re-sign him? Yes, it was. But can you kill Joe Schoen for going out and getting a cheaper option who might fit in to the locker room even better? No. So I think it's very easy to sit here and be like, whoa, why didn't you just re-sign Xavier McKinney? Well, they didn't. And they decided this was a hole that they needed to fill, and they got the top freaking option on the market. We should be ecstatic. We should be through the roof over this signing instead of being all doom and gloom because they didn't sign Xavier McKinney last year. Whoop-de-doo. Okay? They did it. But they corrected the mistake here, Shaun.
I'm with you. I'm with you. And I think that you can't just talk about that move in a vacuum without bringing up what else they did on the first day of free agency, which is something they wasted no time in. And we would argue outside of quarterback, the biggest need. The Giants had Paulson Adebo from the New Orleans Saints, who gets 3 years, $54 million, 33.5 guaranteed. His cap hit next year in 2026 will be the higher cap hit. I want to say it's somewhere around 26 mil, where this year the cap hit's only 12 mil. Yeah. So, I mean, he better be damn good next year, because that's where you're really going to pay him out, is on next year's cap. Look, here's the deal. He breaks a leg with the New Orleans Saints this year, and by all accounts and reports, you talk to anybody that studies the game, he does that, and it costs him money. He could have been the top paid corner on the market if he didn't break a leg. He is a ball hawk. 7 interceptions a year ago. Last year, he had 3 before the broken leg, including a pick 6 over Dak Prescott. Javon Holland, by the way, has had interceptions too. Everybody remembers that Black Friday interception versus the Jets 2 years ago. That was one thing the Giants struggled with. Newman couldn't get his hands on the ball. They could not figure out how to intercept passes. Deonte Banks has no ball skills from a ball hawking perspective. This allows him to go back and be more of a number 2 cornerback. But yeah, I mean, look, as a number 1 corner, he's not going to be shut down Sauce Gardner, but he's physical, gets after the ball. And this is a spot now at 25. They didn't sign a 28, 29-year-old either. He's 25. Same thing, Jevon Holland's age. The Giants secondary now will have Paulson Adebo, Deonte Banks being more reliant on a second corner. Obviously, Drew Phillips, we love what he did. He's your third nickel corner. Yeah. It allows Cordell Flott to go back and be a depth piece. And then your safety tandem of Holland and Newman. This is a really good young secondary.
They did it, man. They did it. This is the number 1 need, Shaun. By far and away, the number 1 need on this team was what the hell are the Giants going to do at secondary? They didn't have a cornerback. They didn't have another safety. And you know what, Shaun? They just got 2 of the best options on the market. One of the best options in both positions. So you could kill Joe Schoen about not having a quarterback yet, but look what they did. They addressed their second biggest need. Obviously, quarterback is number 1, but I think if we're talking about non-quarterback needs, secondary was number 1. So they did it. Why are you smiling?
I'm mid getting a text from a Giants reporter right now. I'm not going to reveal their name. And I think it only further backs up my McKinney Holland point. I had tweeted something earlier about the immaturity of McKinney, and I was told, go look at Javon Holland's history. He does the same. Okay. He didn't with this coach. Which just tells you, and I love our reporters. I'm friends with a lot. Man, McKinney was such a mouthpiece for all these guys. He really was. My God. Go on. Keep going.
I know he should hire them as their PR guy, as his PR guy with the way they're defending him, especially today. But listen, I think it's a step in the right direction. The Giants over the last 2 off seasons have addressed their 2 biggest needs, and that's the trenches, that's defensive and offensive line, and the secondary. So not only does their defense shape up to be a potential top 10 defense, Shaun, I don't think that's crazy to say, but the Giants are set up well for whomever quarterback they go out and draft. I think that could have been said at the start of this past year with how good the offensive line looked before Andrew Thomas's injury. But I think that right now, with the current roster makeup of the Giants, besides the quarterback, they look solid.
Yeah, they do. Solid. They do. And I believe it was Jordan Renan had this tweet, which is a good way to look at this. Let's find this. It was okay. So the Giants defense now has 5 players in Dex, Burns, Okereke, Adebo, and Holland, making at least $10 million per season. 4 have been acquired through free agency and trade in the past 3 years. This can't be a bottom of the half league unit for a 4th straight year. That's spot on. It's a spot on take. We're talking about the youth of the secondary, Bryce, and what they did here. This is a team, and we'll see what happens at the quarterback position. I'm assuming is operating under the assumption we're going to see a rookie quarterback. This is a team that I think is looking to play. We're going to give up less than 19 points per game here. We need to be a top half of the league defense. And something that, Bryce, when the team takes the field in August, and again, you can't play without a quarterback, I'm going to be excited to watch Giants football with the defense based on these first 2 days and what they already had.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be hard to be excited about Giants football if they don't have a quarterback. Like, I don't know how I can sit here and be excited about any team that doesn't have a quarterback. So listen, all these moves are important and especially towards building a successful team. But the most important one hasn't been made yet. Like the biggest move, the only move that really matters hasn't been made. So whether it be a bridge quarterback that could potentially help them win 6-7 games next year. I mean, they've got 2 options available right now as of 10:34 on Tuesday. And I don't know if anything's happened yet. You can update me. I've been on my phone.
Yeah, I just saw that Ian Rappaport's on the NFL Network right now. He said Rodgers is choosing between the Steelers and the Giants, and he believes the additions of the Giants have made it very appealing now to be a Giant. So
there you go. And that's more of a credit to Joe Schoen than anyone. I mean, that's a big backing of Joe Schoen, whether Rodgers signs with the Giants or not. I just hope the Giants don't have to give in to his BS and be like, hey, you can go on McAfee. You can make it.
Well, he will anyway. He will anyway, regardless whether they give in or not.
Then
I still think, by the way, I want this on record because this could come out. I still think he's going to end up a Steeler. But
yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
But Russell Wilson, I mean, he doesn't have a robust market right now. Does he go? I had a friend who said this, and I disagreed with it. He said I think it's completely wrong. He said if the Titans go out and they sign Russell Wilson, he highly doubts. My goodness. What happened?
Unbelievable.
What
Unbelievable.
Happened? Who's outside? He said if the Titans go out and sign Russell Wilson, Shaun, that he doesn't think they're going to draft Cam Ward. I think one thing does not, you're still muted.
I'm sorry. I heard what you said. My dogs are going nuts. I'll just add this. Amidst chaos here. Chaos in the Morash house. Chaos, Bryce. I will just say this. One closing thought. If the Titans sign Russell Wilson, they're holding the Giants over a barrel for that number 1 pick. You respond to that while I let dogs out, and then I'll wrap the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I still don't know about that. I mean, I think it's going to happen either way, especially, and Shaun will hear this whenever he's back. But I think that right now, if the Titans if the Titans like Cam Ward, I don't think it matters what happens with their potential bridge quarterback. If they like Cam Ward, they're going to hold the Giants. I hope it's not a first round pick, but they might be like, listen, you give us a first round pick or we pick up the phone and see who else is interested. I don't really know though, Shaun. I haven't what?
If that's the case though, no Rodgers, no Russ to begin with, and they
what
hold
the hell are they going to do?
I'll tell you my third guy. And again, I'm not telling you I love the guy. I'm going nowhere near Jameis Winston. At that point, just give me Gardner Minshew.
Yeah. I don't hate that. I don't know. This is a very
it's angst.
tough situation. Yeah.
Bryce, if we keep talking, the Giants might eventually have a quarterback though. So we'll see.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. Download, subscribe to One Giant Step everywhere podcasts are available. We gave you a little bit of a longer one today. I mean, there was a lot to get into. I thought Bryce and I kind of broke it down, gave our feelings well. The truth of the matter is, I am 48 hours away, actually less. At the time of taping this, 46 hours away from a flight to tropical paradise with my family. If the Giants do not have a quarterback by then, and I think they will, Bryce, hopefully give you kind of a quick reaction, something like that. I'm going to be quite literally out of pocket, and then I will be able to react to this when I come back early next week. Bryce and I will do a little kind of cleanup, roundup on free agents because you know what's going to happen. It's going to be a little extra small moves we'll have to talk about. But if the Giants do have a quarterback, it's before I get on that plane and we have time to bang out another. That's why you want to download, subscribe, because these podcasts are going to come at any time. Yep. Like there's not a set schedule right now in the off season. I know it's not great for podcast listening for you guys to hear that, but that's the fluency of an off season. So download, subscribe, free on the Audacy app, everywhere podcasts are available, and keep tabs with us on Twitter, X at Bryce Gelman. When it doesn't go down, by the way, that was almost a disaster on Monday. At Shaun Morash, where you could find me. And Bryce, it's another One Giant Step. Good job here, pal. And hopefully the next time we talk, we have a quarterback. That's the way I look at it.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for taking One Giant Step with us.